Donald Trump says his meeting with RNC head Reince Preibus yesterday was, his words, very nice. No word on whether Preibus agrees. Team Trump still reeling from his abortion comments, but now we're getting a blast from the past. The Times dug up a fascinating correlation. They went back to a 1990 Playboy interview that Trump did, and basically, whatever you say, he's consistent. He sounds exactly now like he did then. Back at 90, Trump said, quote, "We Americans are laughed at around the world. Our allies are making billions screwing us." Sound familiar? He still says that every day on the campaign trail. He also said, "If we had people from the business community like Carl Icahn negotiating some of our foreign policy, we'd have respect around the world." 25 years later, he's still talking about Carl Icahn, and he also told this to Playboy, quote, "I don't want to be president. I'm 100% sure I'd change my mind only if I saw this country continue to go down the tubes." Every day he's telling us how terrible things are. That's why he wants to make America great again. So looks like he did change his mind. And Dom, you followed this guy forever. Now, he's changed his politics, he's changed his party, he's changed his positions, too many times to count. But I've never understood for the life of me, and he says it, when somebody asked him in that same interview in 90, well, who'd vote for you? He goes, the regular guy. I connect with the regular guy. When I'm walking down Manhattan, the cabbie pulls down the window and yells, "Yo, Trump," or whatever. If you look at who's voting for him, he's doing best with low-educated voters, the people without the college degrees and whatever else, and he's doing it in all different parts of the country. We'll get to his problems, and they're very real, that we've seen here in the last couple of weeks. But somehow, some way, a guy who flaunts money like nobody's else and is as obnoxious as possibly can be, somehow connects with the regular guy, at least in certain areas of this country. And I guess he's always had that, huh?
He has, Richard, and I'm glad the way you set this up, because knowing Trump and watching Trump, frankly, maybe I shouldn't say this because it's part of a private conversation, but one of the things that he bragged to me about on the telephone years ago was that he does polling, and I'm talking about a private conversation that could get me in trouble. At that time, this is maybe 5 years ago, 6 years, he did polling to see how he connects. And when he spoke to me privately, he was bragging and said to me that 80% of the customers at his casinos happen to be Black or Latino. And the point that he was making privately on the phone was that they love his personality. So he's known, as your setup said, he's known for a very long time that he has the ability, let's take race out of it, to connect with the everyday person. He's wrote that quite well. I think his time is up now because he's being exposed as an empty suit. I just don't see how the Republican Party can go forward with him at the top of the ticket.
Well, we'll do the delegate math with Andrew in a second, just like you did the Democrats. It gets obviously more complicated on the Republican side, but nonetheless, I'm going to take a very unpopular view. Now, I find his comments abhorrent, what he said about abortion and punishing the woman. But I thought he did more harm to his campaign, pivoting and apologizing, than if he doubled down with his statements, only because his whole persona was he didn't care what people thought. He was going to say what he said. He wasn't a filtered candidate. He was who he was and everything else. And frankly, with some of the positions he's taken and people supporting it, taking such a ridiculous point of view as punishing a woman for having the procedure, I don't know how he's helped by apologizing, since I think his base might even agree with him. Who knows anymore with his rules of this thing, but to me, the minute he doesn't seem genuine, he's got no chance to get to Cleveland and actually win the nomination.
I think his apology resonated with you. I don't think it resonated with his base voters. I think they just don't care. But what the most damaging thing he said yesterday, or the day he spoke to Chris Matthews, in a whole list of terrible things he said, was that he would use American nuclear weapons in a war in Europe. He would use American nuclear weapons in a war in the Middle East, he said. He also said he thought it was okay if Japan, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia get nukes of their own. Yeah. Now, President Obama and presidents before him, Republican and Democrat, have spent their entire waking moments worrying about nuclear proliferation, worrying that people who are bad folks are going to get the bomb and blow it up to kill innocent people. And that concern's only gotten even bigger. And here, Mr. Trump says he wants to give him you can have a nuke, you can have a nuke, you can have a nuke. If you thought that the danger, and it's really dangerous, for Pakistan now to have dozens of nuclear weapons, Pakistan, a very unstable country with terrorists galore in and around it, you think that's bad? Imagine if you proliferate the world with more nukes to South Korea, Japan, and Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
So clearly, with that statement alone, the whole world knows this guy is dangerous. He is not prepared to be president of the world's greatest country, and I believe that is what is going to end his political campaign, because whatever all the social issues he might be on the wrong side of,
well, the question is,
responsible Republicans know they don't want this guy with his finger on the nukes.
Are there enough of those responsible Republicans, Andrew, where he is right now, and as we said, even more so than on the Democratic side, he's got to get that magic number by the time that he gets to Cleveland. Otherwise, once it gets to a second ballot here, he knows the establishment's going to do everything they can.
And he's got a path, assuming that it can keep up the level of success he's had so far, Rich. But as you mentioned, figuring out the delegate math on the Republican side is more complicated because there are so many more variables and complicating factors. But let's start with where we are right now. Trump is your delegate leader. He's got 736 delegates, well more than anybody else. Candidate needs 1237 to become the nominee. And since the race on the Republican side is really between Trump and not Trump to try to stop him from getting to that magic number, let's see what Trump needs to do to secure the nomination before he gets to Cleveland. Trump needs to win 501 more delegates to prevent any convention chaos. And with only 943 still available in upcoming primaries, that means he needs to win about 53% of all the remaining delegates. But based on his election strengths and the upcoming schedule, he could actually get there if he gets about 41% of the vote on average in all of the upcoming primaries. But that seriously oversimplifies what Trump is going to face in the coming months. There are a slew of complications that could trip up his quest for the nomination. Like if he starts losing winner-take-all or winner-take-most states. Wisconsin votes on Tuesday. It's a winner-take-most. Trump appears to be trailing Ted Cruz, which means he might take less than a quarter of Wisconsin's delegates. That would hurt. Other big states on the calendar in this particular situation, too, including Pennsylvania, Indiana, California, and New Jersey. Trump could also be haunted by old primaries. He's threatened to sue in Louisiana, where the minutia of picking the actual delegates has essentially erased his primary win there. In South Carolina, there's a movement to strip Trump of all of his delegates because he broke his pledge to support the eventual Republican nominee. Similar games are underway in a slew of states that have already voted. And then there's the mystery of who's actually picked as convention delegates. GOP has some super delegates. They're not called that. Party leaders and state chair people who aren't bound to any candidate. In New York, that includes Chairman Ed Cox. Hard to picture him supporting Trump or voting for him at the convention. And different states have different rules about who picks the delegates and how long they have to be loyal to a candidate. A Trump delegate from Pennsylvania is not required to vote for Trump. Trump delegates from New York will be picked by the party and not by Trump. So if the convention, if he falls short of that magic number, Rich, and the convention goes to a second ballot, Trump could lose all of his New York votes. As we said, it is complicated. But right now, the real question is, can Trump keep up the level of support he's enjoyed in the primaries so far? We'll get a real test of that on Tuesday with Wisconsin.
It's a complicated, it's an overly simplified question, but if he does get 1237, does he still win, or is there a chance they say not so fast, it's not really 1237?
I think if he gets to 1237, he will win. I don't think there's a lot of manipulation that they can do. There are a couple of, there's about 160 super delegates on the Republican side. They could theoretically alter the balance a little bit, but if he gets to 1237, considering, if nothing else, how much everybody at shows like this have been talking about that magic number, I can't see a way to take it away from him.
Now, the question is, can he hang on? Dom, you said the damage you think's done here. That he's in the last 2 weeks, and to the point that you said, Congressman, you know, he's taking on water because he's just unfit to be commander-in-chief. You don't want to give him the launch codes. You look at the map, though, he's still got New Jersey, New York. He's got some states here that you would think would favor him, and there are some winner-take-alls also, you know. The map isn't terrible for him.
It's not, but I would... Remember Marco Rubio in New Hampshire? New Hampshire's never a great example because things are always very variable in New Hampshire. But Rubio was on the rise, and he had the bad debate, and everything went south for him in like 4 days. it depends on what kind of reaction and reception we get from the stuff that happened this week, the comments that Congressman Rothman was talking about. If he then goes in and loses Wisconsin, a state that he was winning a week and a half
he's down
ago,
10 points
then
to
all
his
of a
polls,
sudden
yeah.
he's lost the momentum. Then you're questioning whether he's the winner that he projected himself to be. Next up is New York. If he doesn't hold or stay as strong in New York as he had been, then all of a sudden, the sand could be sifting out of the hourglass for
But
him.
one thing I do know, and I know you've echoed this too, is he's been a master at manipulating the media for this entire thing. If he sees the momentum's going the other way, he might surprise us and do something like a sit down with 60 Minutes, or he might do something where he'll do a major policy speech. It hasn't gone well for him at this point, and he may implode in the next one he does. I think he's learned going off the cuff with interviews, now that everybody's waiting with a gotcha question that he's clearly not prepared for. He's asking for trouble. All right, Andrew, thank you. Coming up next, everybody, we come closer to home. A couple issues in our region. Governor Cuomo reaching a budget agreement includes big-ticket items that could affect just about everybody, everywhere. We'll tell you about that. Plus, we're going to talk about Atlantic City as well. So it's